Okay, so in chapter 3, when we left off, Olivine had just gotten home and found that her house had been ransacked, and she had gotten a letter from Hazel telling her that basically she'd been kidnapped and she needed Olivine to deliver a map to the city of Redwall. And right at the end of the chapter, Olivine was leaving to find Rooks so she could go to the river and take the riverboat upstream. And so that leads us to chapter 4, Moon Mist. Rooks lived at the end of Crooked Basin Wash in a shack half hidden in a cluster of porcupine cacti. On the way to his house, Olivine passed Mesquite Market. The shady clearing had been so busy that morning, but now it was abandoned. How quickly things changed, she thought. Crooked Basin Wash meandered and went on and on. The path was narrow and riddled with big stones, which put a hamper on Olivine's pace. At last she rounded an outcropping of rock, and Rooks's home came into view. She sighed with relief to see him standing by the wagon, making a check mark on an inventory sheet. "Rooks," she called breathlessly. Rooks turned and spotted her. "Olivine?" he said as she ran up to him. "What on earth are you doing here?" Olivine panted, trying to catch her breath. "I'm so glad you're not gone yet. I need a ride to the river." "A ride to the river? What for?" "I don't have time to explain. Come on, we can't be late," she said, pulling herself onto the bench of the wagon. He stood blinking for a moment. Then he climbed in beside her. "Olivine, what's happening? You've never, not in your whole life, wanted to go to the river." She grabbed him by the shoulders. "Rooks, start this thing." Speechless, Rooks smoothed his ruffled feathers and started up the motor. As it coughed to life, Olivine fell back against the wooden bench, thankful she had made it in time. The wagon bumped and jerked through the final twists and turns of the wash. Then they turned onto the well-worn trail that led to the river. As the wagon began up a hill, a figure stepped out from behind a far-off brittle bush. It was the jackrabbit. He narrowed his dark eyes and watched as the wagon reached the top of the hill. As it began down the other side, he leaped after it. In the wagon, Rooks cast a look at Olivine. "Will you tell me what's going on, Olivine? Why do you need to go to the river?" Olivine let out a great exhale. "I can hardly understand it myself, Rooks. I went home, and somebody had broken into my burrow." She winced. "You should see the state of it. Then a letter came from Hazel. She's in trouble, and I have to go to Redwall to help her." Olivine stopped herself before telling Rooks about the map. For some reason, she thought it best not to mention it, as though whatever peril it had brought Hazel was close by. Rooks shook his head. "Hazel is in trouble? You have to go to Redwall?" The wagon swerved. "Rooks!" Rooks jerked the wheel. "Sorry. Olivine, this is crazy. Are you sure she's in trouble? How can you go to Redwall? You've never left the washes." "Don't you think I know that? I would never go to Redwall. But something is wrong. I have to go." "You don't even know the way." Olivine frowned. He was right about that. "I know I have to take the river," she offered. "Once I get to the canyons, I'm sure there will be a trail I can follow." "Olivine," Rooks said, his voice brimming with alarm. "The canyons are a confusing place. You could get lost. Most trails aren't even marked." Olivine's heart fluttered. "Well, you've been there. What should I do?" she said. Rooks rubbed his chin in thought. "Listen to me carefully." Olivine leaned in to hear him over the motor. Rooks pointed his wing at her. "You must keep your wits about you, especially at the river port. It's a busy place and there are all kinds of critters there." Olivine nodded. "You'll need to find the passenger wagons. They go all over the canyons, to flat-topped rock, sideways falls, all over. Of course, you'll take the wagon to Redwall." Olivine nodded some more. She was grateful that Rooks knew so much about the river port. It sounded bewildering. "Have you got coins for the boat passage in the passenger wagon?" he asked. "Yes," she said. It was the only money she had left. "Did you pack food?" She shook her head. "Do you think I'll need food? I'm going straight there." "Oh dear," he said. He reached into a crate in the back and handed her a jar of her jelly. "Here, take this. And this," he said, giving her a jar of pickles. "Pickles and jelly?" she said quizzically, holding up the jars. "It's something to tide you over, at least." Olivine stuffed the jars into her bag. The sky was beginning to glow pink and orange as the sun dipped. The wagon rattled along and, coming through a wall of brush, reached a shore covered in big river rocks. Docked at the end of a short wooden pier was a battered red and white steamboat. At the stern was a big red paddle wheel. 2 smokestacks rose from the middle. From them hung strings of lights that reflected in the dark water. On the side, in fancy lettering, was the name Moon Mist. Critters stood in line to buy tickets at a shabby lean-to near the pier. More scurried about carrying crates and boxes to the boat. Rooks steered the cart into an open space and cut the motor. You can get a ticket there, he said, pointing to a lean-to. I've got to get these crates loaded. Olivine slid out of the cart. The boat made a low droning sound as it idled. She tried to put the unsettling noise out of her mind as she shakily purchased her ticket. When she returned to the cart, the bed was empty and Rooks was waiting for her. His eyes crinkled with trepidation. I hate to say this, Olivine, but I'm worried for you. Her chest heaved. It's Hazel. Rooks gave a solemn nod. The riverboat let out a honk-honk, a notice that it would be departing momentarily. Rooks grabbed her up in his wings. You better get going. Be safe, Olivine. I will, she said. Thank you for your help. He patted her shoulder, and she turned and walked down the little wooden pier. After handing over her ticket, she stepped off the wobbly gangplank and boarded the boat. Once aboard, she didn't know where to go or what to do. She found a spot that gave her a clear view of Rooks, who stood on the bank. The moon mist roared to life and began to back away from the pier. She jumped as the big wheel began to rotate, churning up the water. With another honk-honk, the smokestacks belched black puffs of smoke. Olivine waved and waved, biting her beak to keep from crying. Rooks waved back until the boat chugged around a bend, and he was out of sight. When the pier was gone, the depth of night closed in around the boat. The desert air grew chilly. Overhead, a smattering of stars glinted. Olivine shivered as reality began to set in. She was on her way to Redwall to save Hazel. She could hardly believe it. Around her, critters made their way to the benches and settled in for the trip. Still reeling, Olivine found a seat. She burrowed her face against her chest. Hold on, Hazel, she thought. I'll be there soon. A few benches away sat the jackrabbit. He watched her through the crowd and zeroed in on her blue bag. So that is the end of chapter 4, and I will see you next time for chapter 5.